what I had to unlearn is that you have the behavioral diagnosis of autism, but then you have the medical layers under it, the biology that's causing those symptoms, the not talking, the catatonia, even the seizures. And so that's what I had to unlearn. You have the diagnosis, but then the biological causes are different. So you can have that diagnosis, but you can still work on those biological causes. So I learned to separate the two, and that the biological issues were causing those symptoms.
All right. Well, it's a real pleasure to have Nadia Elkhatib on the show today. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Zora. I'm so excited to be on your show.
Yeah. This is something we got to know each other through our membership group, Biohacking Menopause. And I've just been so amazed with your knowledge on all things health and next level health, optimized health, biohacking, all this stuff. And as you know, we attract really amazing women into our group who know so much more than some of us. So and you're one of those that I keep learning from. And I'm so grateful that you're a part of our group. And when I heard your story about your son, and then I heard that you've got a podcast now, Biohacking Autism, and I started to tune in and get to know you even deeper, I was blown away. Didn't realize how much that you are dealing with, and you're hacking your age with taking care of a child who's now a grown adult. And I would love for you to first share how you, your story and how you spent years in Silicon Valley tech, and then your son's diagnosis of autism, which totally redirected your life. Maybe explain briefly also what is autism in case somebody doesn't know what that is, and what you felt when you understood really what this meant.
Yeah, thank you, Zora. Thank you for all your kind words. And yeah, my background, I feel I've lived like 100 lives. I was a nomad most of my life. I was born and raised in Algeria, but I've lived a little bit all over the world, lived in Abu Dhabi, and even here in the US. I lived in Oklahoma and Texas, North Carolina, and New York. But I'm based in Silicon Valley, in the San Francisco Bay Area. I came to the US in the 90s, early 90s, to complete my master's in computer science. So I had the bachelor's in computer science, and I did my master's in computer science here. And my career was in tech, mainly in telecom, oil, and tech with companies such as Apple, for example. And I did all kinds of things: project management, service delivery. I was a technical specialist. My jam was data, databases, data warehousing, loved finding patterns in data and correlation and taking all this data and getting information out of it. So I was always good at solving problems, and I loved doing that until, unfortunately, my son, Jimmy, 21, when I got his diagnosis, I was like, okay, I need to solve this. I had zero tools, because I always delegated that part of our health, medicine. It's not an exact science. Ew. I don't want to deal with that. I learned the hard way that no, I had to. So then as far as my son, way before his diagnosis, I knew something was wrong. I knew it. He's my first child, but I knew something was wrong, and I was dismissed. He's 21 now. He was diagnosed when he was 18 months, but I was dismissed, and I was told, you're just not talking to him enough. And I said, well, he's not talking at all. And yeah, the answer was, but are you talking to him? Maybe you're not talking to him. Or he's just a boy. Boys are always delayed. It's okay. Or maybe you're doing something wrong. Are you looking at him when you're talking to him? So yeah, that dismissal delayed everything, but I kept at it until, again, he was diagnosed at 18 months, which is awesome, because some kids don't get diagnosed till, a lot of them don't get diagnosed till they're adults, frankly. So what's autism? It is a neurodevelopmental condition, and some kids show signs at birth, such as Jimmy. Some of them get a regress when they're 2 years old, 18 months to 2 years old. So they talk, they're completely neurotypical. And then at 18 months to 2 years old, they lose their language and they completely regress. They stop making eye contact, they stop playing with other kids, and they start turning inwards.
I didn't know that could happen. I thought you're born with this or you're not born with this. And
No.
It can be triggered around 2 years old.
Yes, absolutely.
Why?
Very good question, right? That's the question. But it's the same question as, why do people start showing symptoms of Alzheimer's? We're finding that it's actually very related. It's very similar, the sequence of events. We're not sure exactly what it is, but we know that in general, it's some sort of an insult to the body. And it could be toxic exposure. It could be in utero. And that's why sometimes you see it at birth and sometimes not, right? And so sometimes it's in utero and it comes from the mom. Not to make anyone feel guilty, it's not the mom's fault, but And then sometimes it's an insult that happens later in life around that 12 months to 18 months age. And then it's domino effect. And that's why you see different symptoms. And that's why you see also there's different layers to autism. Some kids are very impacted, like my son, Jimmy, where he couldn't talk. He couldn't maintain eye contact, could not play with other kids, and would self-harm, like hit his head on the floor and be very anxious and aggressive, like this cute little kid. And some others, I hate the term high functioning, but they can talk. They can mask their autism and communicate with others. They can maybe have a job, but then things break down later in life. They can never have a real relationship. A lot of them can never have a job because they cannot function, although they're verbal. So yeah, there's a whole spectrum of symptoms for autism.
Can I ask then? You said it can regress at around 2. What's the latest that's ever been documented as somebody being not diagnosed, because you said diagnosed can happen later, but where there's something triggers autism at 10, 8, 15?
I don't think, I have never seen that. So I've always seen it more around that 18 months. Okay. Sometimes earlier, 1 year, but usually the earliest would be a year, and then the latest would be 2.5. But it's really that specific.
Yeah.
And we're getting some explanations from doctors. For example, Dr. Goodnow's explanation of why it happens. Obviously, you know Dr. Goodnow, and he thinks it's related to plasmalogens, right? And phospholipids. And that injury causes that phospholipid, that plasmalogen reserve to dwindle down much earlier, probably when they're 6 months, 7 months, and then it dwindles down. And then at 18 months, 2 years, there's nothing left. And now the neurons cannot communicate properly and the pathways cannot be built.
That's crazy. So did you interview him yet?
Not yet. So he's going to be on my podcast. I spoke to him many times. He's been actually amazing. We're on his plasmalogen protocol. My fridge is full of his plasmalogens. He's been very generous with that. So we're definitely having him on the podcast because I think he was able to find a really nice and clear sequence of events that would explain this. Is it the only explanation? Maybe not. But I know, like for Jimmy, for example, well, now you know me. So you know I've been collecting data since he was very tiny. But for example, his cholesterol levels have always been extremely low since he was very little, right? Most doctors are like, oh, that's absolutely amazing. And I'm like, no, I think something's wrong with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the brain is cholesterol.
Mm-hmm.
You need cholesterol to make hormones. Mm-hmm. And we'll talk later about the hormonal aspect of things, but it's all connected. And that's why I didn't give a very clear and crisp answer, but really, again, the answer is that there is some sort of an insult. And then depending on each person's biology, the dominoes fall in a different path. And that's why it shows up differently. That's why it's a spectrum. And I know some moms that have twins or 2 kids on the spectrum and they present extremely differently.
Really?
And that's because,
they both would have autism, or is there one
Yes.
without and one with? Can that happen?
Yeah, absolutely. Some have one with, some without. And some have 2 and they present differently. Both have autism. One talks, the other one doesn't. Yeah.
Interesting. I'm fascinated by this because I don't know much about autism, but I had 2 neighbors, both with 5-year-olds with autism. And it's incredible. Is this a genetic thing?
It cannot be a genetic thing because it's an epidemic. So if it was the same numbers that stayed stable, it would be genetic. And by the way, I've spoken to so many researchers and doctors. They've looked into this so deep because it would be nice. It would be just an answer. It's this gene. It's not. It's really not. And genetic predispositions, probably genetic predispositions to inflammation, to having trouble detoxing, to phospholipid issues, right? Processing phospholipids. But the actual gene for autism, there's no such things. And with numbers, like what we have, the CDC, which means that's the published for sure numbers. So we know it's actually a lot more, is saying that it's 1 in 31 US children. 1 in 31.
31?
So
1 in 31 has autism?
Yep, diagnosed autism. So that doesn't count the ones that are not diagnosed.
Oh, that's
right?
huge. Wait, that's a big number.
Oh, yeah.
That's
absolutely.
Insane. So
now does it look like
the Center for Disease Control, in case people are not sure what that is? But
yes.
Yeah, incredible. And that's the U.S. figure, or is that global?
That's just the U.S. That is just the U.S., right? And I'm telling you, it's all over the world. And again, this is what's published. So you have all these kids. I meet now because of my podcast. I get incoming things from so many adults with autism saying, oh my God, I just got diagnosed. I was suicidal, depressive, had all these health issues, cannot function in society. I haven't left my house in years because I cannot leave my house. And now I know why. And so these guys were diagnosed much, much, much later in life. I don't know if they're counted in the CDC numbers. I think it's a lot more than 1 in 31. See, you just said so many of your neighbors are affected by it. It's more. It's a lot more. If you're at the airport, do you know how many people around you have a kid with autism? It's ridiculous, the number. It's an epidemic. Epidemic.
Is this, I can't remember what, there was a huge wave, I don't know, a couple decades ago of parents. I remember because it was when I had my kids and they didn't want to vaccinate their kids because of triggering, and I don't remember if it was autism or ADHD or something. Was it autism? What was that?
Yeah,
you remember? Is there a connection that it could trigger autism?
Yes. Oh, I didn't know we were going to talk about this. That's fine. Actually, I do want to talk about it. And I'm going to be very careful here. Okay. Yes, absolutely. I will at some point, I'm honestly trying to find the right person to come on my podcast to speak about it because of this. I'm highly educated. I know a lot of very highly educated people around me. I talk to professors at Harvard and MIT and Stanford. But talking about this triggers something super dogmatic about vaccines that makes it really hard to talk about, to kind of come out of the closet and talk about it. So there we go. I'm coming out of the closet on your podcast. Yeah. So yes and no, right? Is it the cause? Maybe not. Is it one of the potential insults, the toxic insults we were talking about? Yeah. I mean, would you vaccinate someone who has HIV? Would you vaccinate someone who's immunocompromised or someone that has cancer? I think that's the problem. I think a lot of these kids are born with compromised immune systems. And before pulling data, just simple blood tests, let's look at their IgGs, their IgEs, right? Let's look at their immune system and let's figure out, are they strong enough to get this vaccine?
Was Jimmy a sick baby before you vaccinated?
Yeah, he was very skinny when he was born. He was born at 36 and a half weeks. He had jaundice. And there was obviously something, and it was a very tough delivery. So again, that's the question.
More insults, yeah, like death by 1,000 cuts, kind of a thing. Is what you're saying.
Yes,
and that's what it is. I mean, when you think of disease and cancer or anything, it's not just one thing. It's usually a combination of many things together. That's why it's so hard to figure it out.
Exactly. And I think this conversation has to be had. We have to talk about this. We have to not be dogmatic about anything, actually, not just vaccines, anything. It's not an exact science and it's not spiritual or religious. Okay. It's just data. And if you have all these parents, maybe some of us are a bit crazy, but not all of us. Maybe listen to us. Maybe ask questions, maybe have some intellectual curiosity, just like you are having it, right? You weren't affected by this, but you're asking the question because you're saying, wait a minute, I've heard a lot of this. Maybe there's something to it. Maybe it's a conspiracy theory. Maybe it's just crazy talk, but let me ask about it. So
you are deep into it. And maybe describe, I can't imagine how horrible of a feeling it is to be dismissed or gaslit when you intuitively know as a mom something's not right with your kid. And I remember myself with a friend of mine whose child has been diagnosed with autism later in life. And she knew, and I remember when he was about 4 or 5, she was so worried he's not talking or he talks very little. And I was like, well, he's got 3 languages and he's a boy. I'd use all of those gaslighting words. I didn't know. He had good intentions. You want her to feel good, but she knew. She was so adamant about, no, you are wrong. And she was right. She was right. Yeah. And you just know intuitively. So you did mention something about, they said the doctors told you that Jimmy wouldn't talk until he was he would never talk or something like that. What's that story?
Yeah, so that story literally I can still remember faces and their voices because it was so impactful. And he would have moments where I know now that it's catatonia, which is a big thing also in autism, but where he would just kind of freeze. So catatonia, and he doesn't have that anymore, but a lot of people with autism, including adults, have that where they're kind of frozen and you're frozen. And sometimes you can be frozen. You're trying to open a door and you just cannot move anymore. You can move, but you feel paralyzed. And I've had so many parents reach out to me about this, and it's a huge issue with autism. But you see where it goes back to the nervous system being imbalanced and the brain, the pathways not being there. So that's a huge issue. So I thought that it was potentially a seizure. So we went to Stanford, which is very close to where I live, to do a 24-hour EEG. Let's see if he has seizures. And he was still little. Maybe he was 4 years old, something like that. And I was told very clearly at Stanford Medical, there's a window. There's this window, imaginary window, and it closes at 5 years old. If he doesn't talk before 5, he'll never talk. And also, by the way, I was told, so make sure he talks before he's 5. I was like, oh, so
the pressure, no pressure, no pressure.
And also maybe, can you tell me how to do that? Since there's a window and you're asking me to do it, like, what do I do? I was never given any tools at all, but I was told there was a window that closes at 5. Well, he started talking when he was about 8 years old, by the way. So
there is no window.
There's no window. There's no window.
The fear that the authorities, quote unquote, have on you. And so you then learned very quickly, probably, that you can't always rely or put all of your faith in what you're hearing. So, and I bet not everyone's like you in terms of diving into the research or diving into what else I can do. Because I imagine 20 years ago, probably not that many services or support for people with autism. And I don't know what it's like now, but you had to probably do so much. So what did you learn, or what did you have to unlearn maybe from conventional advice to get where you're at now?
Yeah. Well, first when I was told that, and including when I was told about the window, that's me. I'm like at my lowest in my life, because when I was finally given the diagnosis, although I knew something was wrong, it literally felt like a death. It was a death of what I was hoping for him. I was imagining him graduating from college and having a girlfriend and having kids and all of that. So I still haven't grieved that, and maybe it's wrong, but it's also because I'm hoping that I'll be able to fix it. So that was maybe a coping mechanism to try and solve things. Okay. So instead of grieving, I decided to find a solution, and he's made a lot of progress. So that was my coping mechanism, but also it was a proof of concept, because I saw that there was progress. I saw that window was just whatever. And that's basically kind of what I unlearned. So I replaced grief with action. And that's why, by the way, I have the podcast. It's because also what I had to unlearn is that you have the behavioral diagnosis of autism, but then you have the medical layers under it, the biology that's causing those symptoms, the not talking, the catatonia, even the seizures. And so that's what I had to unlearn. You have the diagnosis, but then the biological causes are different, right? So you can have the diagnosis, but you can still work on those biological causes. So I learned to separate the two, and that the biological causes, the biological issues were causing those symptoms. I had to unlearn, like, replacing everything with speech therapy and occupational therapy and ABA, which at the time was very Pavlovian. You do something good, you get a candy. You do something bad, we're just going to ignore you. Yeah. So that's what I was given. That's the only thing I was given. So I had to learn that, you know what, if I remove a lot of the toxic load he has, if I help with the infections that are invading his body, well, maybe now his brain can start building those pathways to talk, because his body was in survival mode. And when you're in survival mode, speech is not essential. You don't need speech for survival. You don't need hormones for survival. You don't need that. And when that happens to a little kid, well, yeah, one of the first things that stops and goes on pause is building those pathways for talking, for interacting with the outside world. And so that's another thing I had to unlearn. Instead of pushing hard, he was doing 40 hours of applied behavioral therapy. He was doing speech therapy at least 3 hours a week, and tons of occupational therapy, which is still great, but that was not making any difference. He was still nonverbal, completely nonverbal. So I had to unlearn also that there's no prince on a white horse that will come and just sweep you off your feet and take care of you and take care of all of this. You're the prince. You're the person, the buck stops with me. And I had to learn that the hard way. I was delegating everything to doctors. And this is not saying anything bad about doctors, but I had to learn that for my health, just like you did for yours. We have to take charge of our health. Doctors are consultants. They will help you execute things. They will help you also make a decision. Because sometimes I'm like, ooh, should I go this path or this path? They're my consultants. I ask the questions, but at least now I know what questions to ask. And I know I have enough education so I can understand the data that I have and what questions to ask. And I would say, by the way, another very important thing that I had to unlearn, and I think that's going to be very important for your audience, and that's for autism, but also everything else, just so your heart doesn't get broken. When it comes to support and empathy and really having your community and your people there for you, people react very in different ways, whatever, to issues that you have. So for example, when Jimmy was diagnosed with autism, I expected different reactions from people, but some people were very not comfortable with it. So they just went kind of silent. Yeah, great people, but I'm not sure why, but I guess everybody has their limitations. I can't control how people react. I just can control what I do. So I learned that I cannot count on, frankly, support. I cannot count on anybody doing anything. I can only count on myself. And then when I find amazing people like you, Zora, and frankly, your community is not about autism, but we talked about autism so many times. You asked me questions about me. You asked me how I've been feeling. You told me to take care of myself. I wasn't expecting that, but that was unbelievable. Whenever I finish any session in your group, like your group calls, I feel like I've had the best therapy session and I have a pep in my step ready to go. You guys are my people. And so I had to unlearn that your people are not necessarily who was assigned to you by destiny. Just find your people. They're out there. You're not alone. There are other parents with kids with autism. There are other amazing people that will have empathy and be there for you. Just have to find them. Just find those guys.
You're going to build that community too.
Yeah.
You got your podcast going, but then I think the speaking to other people is so important. And if you can meet people in person, there's even more benefits. But just knowing that there's a community out there who understand your issues. I will never understand what it's like to be in your shoes. And I can be very empathetic. I can try, I can do my best, but I think it's very special to be talking to somebody who's going through the same motions as you are. And this is why our menopause group is great, because we are all going through this together. And if you're not going through it, it's hard to imagine. So this is something I'd love to see you and maybe eventually get a community going, and where women can really speak to each other and get those benefits that you're getting with our community as well. But I want to dig into your brain in terms of, you've had 21 years of biohacking autism, right? And you're starting from ground zero and then learning your way up. And you've learned a lot in the last 21 years. What do you think has made the biggest lever what is the biggest lever in Jimmy's health that did something really, really quite miraculous for him, that maybe somebody who's listening now who has a child with autism, whether no matter what age they are, can actually implement or at least explore to see if that's something they can do?
Yeah, and that's a great question, because I do get this question often, and Jimmy has been posting on social media and he's getting all these questions on TikTok, and it's so good to see, but it's also heartbreaking to see all these moms saying, wait, so now you're talking, my kid is nonverbal, my kid is 3, my kid is 6, my kid is 10. How did you start talking? And I want to be careful, because I don't think that there's a single path. And more importantly, I don't think that I have the solutions for everybody, because again, that's why I didn't want to learn anything about medicine before, because it's not an exact science. It's not 1 + 1 = 2. There are a lot of different paths to the same result, right? Jimmy is not where I want him to be, but I will never give up. I'm not going to give up. I'm working on it, and I'll keep working on it until my last breath. But the answer to your question is this, and then I can tell you exactly what happened for him. But in general, for all the moms listening, step 1, take charge. Sorry, that's it. The buck stops with you. You have to take charge. That's it. It's hard. It's going to be hard. It's daunting, but you take charge. Step 2, get some data, because you cannot decide what to do if you don't know what's happening in their body. And there's a lot of data you can have. You can have passive data from wearables. It's really cool, because like with Jimmy, now we see when his heart rate is way too high. We can see his HRV. We can see how he slept last night. If you don't know how your kid slept, How can you answer questions about his anxiety today? When we don't sleep, we get cranky. So get data, get passive data. Blood work, you need blood work. Of course, you need stool tests, urine tests, but blood work. The blood work we do for menopause, we need to get it for our kids. And also, I'm going to pause here for a second because I have a lot of moms that tell me that their kids cannot get blood work. They cannot, of course, it's a phobia. I get it. Again, it's hard.
Yeah, to put a needle in anybody's arm. I remember my kid would scream and cry for that. No way.
Yeah, but if you're trying to save their lives, if you're trying to change their lives, you cannot let that stop you. You just cannot let that stop you. There are solutions. Now, Jimmy, I learned, for example, with Jimmy, I let him actually watch and I realized it was just a control thing. I was covering his eyes before. And then as soon as I stopped doing that, when he can actually look at it, he just relaxed and he's fine with it. And I'm not saying it's always going to be this easy. What I'm saying is that you cannot let these obstacles stop you because it will make a huge difference. Teaching them how to swallow capsules will make a huge difference. You can do it. And Jimmy had all kinds of sensory issues. We taught him how to take capsules. And now I don't have to worry if it's like a disgusting herb that tastes super bitter. If it makes him feel better, he's going to take it. He's not going to feel it. So again, first step, you take charge. Second step is you get the data. And then the third step is you're going to make decisions on which path to take. You cannot make decisions without being educated. Again, another hard thing to do. And look, it's not fun, but you have to be able to make the decision, not the doctor. You make the decision. The doctor helps you implement that decision. So that next step is learning. Just learn. When Jimmy got diagnosed, there wasn't a lot, but that's the first thing I started doing. I was reading stuff and I was teaching myself because it was all foreign to me. You can do it. If I did it, you can absolutely do it. And you don't have to read medical papers. Now there's so much available. But you have to learn, you have to make educated decisions with your kids' data and with your own knowledge. Put those together, then you go see a doctor and then you implement what you decided. For Jimmy, what made the biggest impact, and I had tried a lot of things before we actually went the direction of Lyme disease. And we saw Dr. Klinghardt in Seattle. I don't know if you've heard of Dr. Klinghardt, but he's one of the top guys in Lyme disease. And we found that he had a very strong case of Babesia, which is one of the co-infections of Lyme disease. It's actually a parasite. And we worked on it. It was very tough. We worked on it, and then the language started coming out.
Oh my gosh.
Exactly. Now, does that mean that Babesia is the cause? It's not the cause of autism. It's not the cause of not being able to speak. But like you said, the last drop, his bucket was so full of insults, of infections, of toxic insults. So we removed this big one, removed it. And now his body was able to go, okay, we're not dying. Maybe we can start building those pathways for language. And then he was more receptive. Maybe he was in less pain. I don't know if he was in pain. He couldn't communicate with me. Yeah. I don't know if he was nauseous all the time. Maybe, I'm not sure. But maybe if you're not in pain all the time and nauseous and feeling horrendous, maybe you can also start learning things and being open to communicating with others. So I think the most impactful thing was removing
the Lyme,
as much of the toxic or bugs from his body as I could. And in his case, it was Babesia.
What did it feel like when you first heard those words coming out of his mouth?
Amazing. I mean, we were crying. He never even said mom before.
What was his words?
It was mom.
Oh,
don't make me cry. Zora, don't do it. But yeah, it was heartbreaking. Yeah, it was just heartbreaking. He could not say things. I've had.
So when he started talking and he first said mom, I mean, that's just incredible. And then how did he just build on it every day, had a new word, or every week or every month?
Yes. Yeah. So again, that's me. Now you guys know me. I'm a little bit too much, but this is what I did. So at the time he was at school, and even for the schools, we tried everything. We tried private schools. We tried public schools. I'm in one of the best public schools in the US, 10 out of 10, the best. But he wasn't learning anything because he was nonverbal. And when you're nonverbal, there's zero assumption of intelligence. If there's no output, that means that there is nothing happening here. So no one ever tried to teach him how to read, how to write, what a calendar was. ever because he was nonverbal. And if you're nonverbal, that means nothing is actually happening, which is why there's no output. Not true. He was listening to everything. He heard us talking about him. He heard us saying everything. He was learning. So what I did is after I tried to have the teachers teach him, have the schools teach him, I actually quit my job and homeschooled him for many reasons. One of them was, again, data. I had no idea if he could learn. And if he could, how can he learn? So quit my job, stopped everything, sat with him, learned how to teach. And then I started teaching him how to read. And that helped his language progress like super quickly because maybe that's how he learned. So when he saw the words, it translated the right way in his brain and he was able to say them much better. Better than any speech therapy he's ever had before. That's how he progressed super quickly, by teaching him how to read.
Amazing. Okay. You made so many things happen, but it's because you're such a fighter and you just don't give up. And I know that you've used things like IVIG, inoculation, hyperbaric oxygen therapy, all these biohacking things. Some people would say it's fringe and some people would say it's controversial. So do doctors or any other people ever say that you're just experimenting on your child?
Course.
Way.
Of course. And frankly, I think it's a cop-out, right? It's a cop-out from all these guys when they say I'm experimenting on my child, because then the next question is, oh, okay, so
what do
you have for me?
You got a better idea?
Anything, just please, I'm waiting. And frankly, I was offered antipsychotics when he was, 3-4 years old. He was going to be put on Zoloft. I didn't. But I was offered that very on a silver platter. That's the only thing that I was offered on top of the therapies, right? Behavioral therapy, speech, blah, blah, blah. So I was offered all of that. I didn't do that. So I could have just waited for clinical studies to happen in 10 to 20 years. Or I could learn that things like a B12 injection could maybe help with the toxic load, which in turn would help with his speech. But same thing. So now if I'm experimenting on my kid, when I was asking for a B12 injection, it's literally as if I was asking for meth for my child. Okay. Now is B12 safe? Yeah. Yes. It's more than safe. It's actually essential. So yeah, I was told that. I was also given a lot of patronizing answers. Things like, oh, did you watch that on TV? Were you watching Oprah? Exactly. So I had to take charge. But then I did it, I think, the right way. So the way I did it is I first educated myself. I looked at what was available. So for example, IVIG, right? His blood work showed that he had immune issues. It was very clear. And so I worked with Dr. Gupta at UC Irvine, who was actually writing papers on IVIG and autism. He was finding the link between the immune issues and autism. We never talk about that. We talk about behavioral issues. All the kids with autism have immune issues. That's where we should be.
Do you think there'll be a cure for autism one day?
100%. 100%. Not only a cure, but also, and this is so important, and I've talked to so many expecting parents, also how to make sure that your kid will not have autism at birth. It's not anything, it's not one thing, it's not like one drug, one enzyme. It's going to be all the things we're doing to take care of our bodies in menopause and perimenopause. It's all those things. So maybe a mom before getting pregnant, let's balance your hormones. Let's make sure your hormones are balanced. Oh, let's make sure your thyroid is balanced. Let's check your toxic load. Let's do all of that. And again, I work with some doctors, Harvard, MIT, that tested that on a small group of people, but an N of 50 or 100, and there were no kids born with autism. Now, for the ones that already have autism, the answer is, well, if I get hit by a bus, can I get back to exactly how I was before? Probably not. So it's not going to be getting them to where they should have been as a neurotypical person, but we can make them functional. We can recover their health. We can make them feel better. Yeah. That's amazing. It's okay to be quirky. Again, I'm in Silicon Valley. I'm an engineer. I'm quirky. It's fine. It's cool. That's great. But if you can't talk, if you have to self-harm because you have a headache and you're a tiny little kid and you have to hit your head on the ground, no, something has to be done about that. So yes, I think that we're going to find all kinds of things. I think that everything we're talking about, I really have a strong hope that it will become mainstream. If for any reason that, unfortunately, even if people have blinders on, well, it's an epidemic and you're going to get exposed to it. It might be your child. It might be your nephew, your niece. You can't close your eyes to it. It's an epidemic. So it's going to have to be taken care of.
Okay, to be continued. I want to see this. This is a big, if they're 1 out of 31 people diagnosed with autism, then boy, we better have a solution. So I want to now shift gears a little bit to the moms, the parents in general, who are taking care of autistic children or young adults, that for that matter. And what I've learned a lot from you is that you're not allowed to die. You're not allowed to get sick because you're responsible for this. And the weight, I cannot imagine. And I raise my kids knowing that, they're going to fly the coop and they'll be independent and I don't need to care for them anymore. But you can't do that. So explain a little bit why your health matters. And any woman who's listening to this, who's just running her health to the ground because she's caring for somebody else, what she needs to know.
Yeah. Well, the very first thing is that I used to do that. I used to run my health to the ground because I thought the best way to care for someone is to be selfless, to sacrifice, to just go for it, give it your all. And if I give it my all, if I even take, frankly, the time when I have Hashimoto's, if I take the time to drive to the doctor, park, go out, do my blood work, talk to them, that's time I could give him to learn how to read or to feel better or to prepare his capsules or to research things. And I thought that's how I would optimize things. Take time from me, take energy from me and give it to him. But now looking back, yes, guys, it's silly. It's silly because they're younger than us. So we're always going to be like behind age-wise. And if I can live longer, then I can take care of him more. And look, it's not even just about money. I have friends with unlimited financial resources, but there's no one that will actually be able to take care of their kid, frankly. It's them. So I realized at some point I was making a plan and I was trying to think, okay, so if I can get this done within the next 2 years, if he can do this and that, maybe he can be independent, he can live on his own, and then we can leave enough money for an aid, things like that. And then that's when it hit me and I thought, wait, my timeline, if I could stretch it by 10 years, oh my God, it gives me all this time to research, figure things out. We'll talk about the tech later, but maybe things can catch up and then maybe some amazing things can happen. But if I could hang in there, not get hit by a bus, although I think if I get hit by a bus, I'll get up right away and I'll be like, sorry guys, not now, can't, you don't understand. So just get up, limp back and figure out how to get back on my feet and then get back to the battle. But it just hit me. And then again, to your audience, guys, don't do what I did, because once I decided to test and look at my health, it did not look good. That was like 3-4 years ago. And I don't know if you know Dr. Will Cole. So he's the one that looked at my labs. And I remember at the time it was on Skype and his face, he's like, I don't even know where to start. He said, first of all, weight-wise, if you just look at food, you will gain weight because your body is, everything was bad. I had non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. You know, Zora, at the time, I didn't eat sugar, did not even eat fruits, okay? Fatty liver disease, like that hit me like a ton of bricks. First of all, because, whoa, it's usually what we think of people that drink too much. Not my case. But also I realized my mortality, my longevity, my health span were just in a bad place. And that was just ridiculous. And that's when I realized, okay, let's see what's out there. That's when I started looking at the longevity groups. And that's how I even met you, because I started joining Nat Nidham's group and she's your best friend. That's how I found you. But I started learning. I started meeting these people who were like in their 80s and that looked better than I've ever looked in my life, that felt better, sharp, absolutely amazing. And I realized, okay, there's a solution out there. And you guys, it's not even that hard. There are like things that are so easy to do and you can feel amazing and you can look amazing. You can look like Zora, strong, muscular, youthful. And it's not vanity. It's not, sure, it's a side effect to look great. Why not? But if you look amazing, if you feel better, you show up better. You just show up better. You can think better. You can be stronger. You can have more endurance and it's available. Take it, do it. And that's what I did. I started, frankly, the very first thing I started on was a GLP. And at the time that was like really just super fringe, but I read the research.
Tell people what's a GLP.
So a GLP is a peptide. And by the way, our bodies produce GLPs, right? But it's a peptide that just signals to your body to just to simplify it, to use glucose properly. Like, how do I balance my glucose? We are exposed, again, that's another insult. We are exposed to sugar all the time. We're all what we call insulin resistant, which means that our bodies don't know how to process sugar anymore because there's sugar in absolutely everything.
In the
right?
US, a little bit less.
In the US.
I noticed when I go back to the US, I was like, even bread tastes like sugar.
Because there is sugar in bread, because it keeps it longer. If there's sugar in bread, it doesn't go bad as quickly.
Yeah, crazy.
Literally, that's why. There's sugar in salad dressing. There's sugar absolutely everywhere.
Nothing
right?
bad with sugar. It's just when you overdose it, like that's the problem.
Yeah, plus we weren't, so the reason GLPs are really great is we were not created to be exposed to that much sugar. We were created to have a little sugar, like a fruit or something like this, and your body deals with it and then comes back to a normal state. We were not made, just like with stress, we're not made to be in a stress state all the time. We're not made to be consuming sugar all the time. Our bodies don't know how to bounce back, so they stay in that high sugar level the whole time. And that causes things like weight gain. That causes, again, we're talking now about Alzheimer's being a type 3 diabetes, right? Mm-hmm. It causes all kinds of different issues. So I read all of that, and I read how GLPs this peptide didn't just help with people with diabetes, but it also helped with Alzheimer's, and it helped, of course, with weight loss too. And weight loss, again, is not just vanity. It's not a luxury. It's not a selfish thing. Weight gain is very dangerous for your health. Like, losing the weight will make you live longer, will give you better longevity, better health span, and better health overall, cardiac health, mental health, all of it.
We're talking about excess weight too. Like, little body fat's good, but we're talking about excessive that disrupts the metabolism, and it just become completely dysfunctional there. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And unfortunately, a huge percentage of people in the US are considered obese. I was definitely considered obese at the time. Maybe I'm still borderline. I'm not there yet, but I'm working on it because, yes, excess weight, visceral fat, and then all the fat around your organs, good. It's just not good. And that causes a lot of inflammation and a lot of other issues. But that was my entry into the longevity world. And then that's when I started discovering, again, people like you and like Nat and like Taylor and Hunter Williams. And I started just learning. Like, your first sessions, I barely spoke. I was just in your group, in your private community. I was just listening, learning, taking notes. You have amazing people in your group. And I was just taking notes and learning, taking notes and learning. Again, you guys, even if you don't understand things, it's okay. Take your time. It's cumulative. You're going to learn this and then you'll understand this better, etc. So I started learning, and then after maybe a year, I started applying more of that stuff to myself. And then I realized that, oh, wait a minute. If you take somebody with autism and you remove this diagnosis, it's a syndrome. It's not a blood test. You can yet. It's going to happen. But someone with autism has autism because of their medical issues. So now if you remove this diagnosis and you put this person in this longevity and biohacking space, now you start looking at their medical issues. Well, the result is that those autism symptoms will start changing and getting better. And that's what I started seeing with Jimmy. And I was like, okay, let's do that. I started working on my hormones, and I started learning about things like progesterone and pregnenolone and how it helps with your nervous system and calming you down. Men have progesterone too in their bodies. Guess what? They also have estrogen. What? We have testosterone too. So they need those hormones. And it was mind-blowing for me and for him. I feel better than I probably felt in my 20s. I'm also working with Dr. Amy Horniman for my Hashimoto.
Thyroid.
Best numbers in my life ever. Yeah, she's going to be on the podcast too. And by the way, a lot of the moms that I meet, I always ask them, do you have Hashimoto's? Literally, probably 7 out of 10 will say, oh yeah, how did you know?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about the moms in the circle. So who are raising autistic children and their health and how they're taking care of it or ignoring it. What are you seeing? Because you're taking it next level. You're not only taking care of your health, but you're optimizing it to be the best version of yourself so that you can take care of Jimmy and be around as long as you possibly can. But most of the other women that you're speaking to are not there yet.
No, they're not. And I probably face the same answers that you face, right? So first of all, I'll tell you what I see. I just came back from a conference in San Diego for autism, and I see the parents of adults with autism. Heartbreaking. heartbreaking. And they're still clawing their way into trying to find solutions, but you see them. I mean, I hate to use that term, but I swear it looked like zombies. People my age that looked like 30 years older than me. And again, it's not a vanity thing. It's not about how you look.
No,
But if that's
they're aged. They're,
they're
what they're saying on the outside is you're guessing that's probably what's happening on the inside, which is more important.
100%. That's it. Literally, that's it, right? And so when I talk to some of those parents about things that you talk about, so for example, when I talk to moms about menopause, the first answer I always get is, oh, I had hot flashes, but it's fine now. It's fine. And I just powered through it. It's better. And I'm like, wait, it's not just about the hot flash. And again, the hot flash is an external symptom of something happening inside. Things are happening in your body right now. You can't just ignore it. You need to live longer. You need to prevent Alzheimer's, prevent bone loss, prevent muscle loss. All those things are happening in your body. And so I don't know why people...
They're silent killers. This is what's happening. They're pushing through. Maybe they can, and maybe when you are in your 20s and 30s, you could handle it. But I think once you get to your 40s and 50s, your bucket is so full. And we see this about just women in general. But you have been raising a child, autism, and caring for that. So there's an added load that you have that I don't have. And that's accelerated aging. And I think that when you hit menopause, all these things kind of come to the surface, like, why I could handle it before, now I cannot. And maybe you're seeing now, I mean, you probably at these conferences meeting people who have small children, they're just getting started. And then you have the people who've been dealing with it for 20 or 30 years. And it's probably a very different story.
It is. And again, I don't know. I think you have more experience in this, but maybe people are just scared of the daunting path. Yes, it is hard to learn. It is hard to test. It is hard to find the right doctor. It's hard, but it's much easier. It's pay now or pay later. I'd rather pay by learning, by doing the work right now, rather than the future. The grim future is just so much harder to deal with. Once you have osteoporosis, like, what can you do? You can do some things, but it's much harder to take care of it than right now to take some supplements, to lift some weights, to get some sunshine. Much easier. It's much, much easier than having fractures. And same with Alzheimer's. My dad has Alzheimer's. His sister has Alzheimer's. His brother is starting to show symptoms. Frankly, I talked to my first cousins and I said, let's do it. Let's do it together. Let's get all of our data together. And let's come up with a plan. We're not getting Alzheimer's. Let's just make this pact. And unfortunately, a lot of the answers were including from some of my cousins who are doctors, and it breaks my heart. They were saying, well, there's no cure. Might as well enjoy life.
They haven't read Dr. Dale Bredesen's books, have they?
And that's who I was thinking about doing. I was thinking about having Dr. Bredesen help us and be like an N of, I don't know, we're about 10. And now have all of this data, find the patterns, put on the protocol, and then we can see what happens, make changes, tweaks. So in general, what I'm trying to say is that I don't know why people react like this, because there are solutions to all these things. You can feel better. You can feel better. I really believe that you can live longer, and I really believe that you can have a better health span. Let's just do it. But there's something blocking people, and it could be because their primary physician is not saying that to them, and it's got to come from them, which I think it will happen in 10 years, not right now. It might be too late, frankly. So there is a blockage. A lot of people are just blocked by that and just are stuck in that sacrifice. Let's deal with today. I don't want to think about that.
Nobody wants to look at the future very often. It's too scary, or you don't want to get old. You don't want to look old. You don't want to feel old. We're all ageist to a degree or another. And there's some people who are less and some people who are more. But the problem is that people generally don't want to fix it until it's broken. And it's really hard to prevent. It's not tangible. Life is so hard as it is. Unfortunately, we have outliers like you and me who are willing to protect our future 80-year-old self. And you, because you can't afford it. You really can't. And I would think that perhaps the people in your circle who are caregivers realize the importance of this, because I think the biggest worry is what is going to happen to my kid when I die, right?
Exactly. And honestly, because I tried the direct route of talking to people about how they would feel if they did all the things that we're doing. Now, my strategy, to be honest, and it's a bit hard, but I'm just super open about everything I'm doing. And I don't know if I'll ever talk about my actual weight, But I'm just very open. I'm going to show my labs. I'm going to show how much weight I lost. I'm going to show how my inflammation, my CRP changed, all of that. So I'm hoping that when people see it and they see the changes and they see how much better I feel, that's going to be the trigger for them actually doing it for themselves. It's not this abstract concept.
But they'll have to rewind a couple of years because I would never know. I mean, you look like you're in perfect health. Everything is, if people just look at you, the way you organize your day, the habits that you make, it's this amazing longevity protocol. And so you're high functioning, you're managing that. Whereas that, I would say you've already made probably very big progress. I didn't know you before when you just started this, but I bet you have photos and coverage and footage and things that you can share to inspire the people. But I want to say, for the caregiver who's listening now, it's like, okay, yeah, you're right. Maybe I do need to do something, whether it's caregiving autistic children or anything else. What do you think are the big levers that need to be done, other than you talked about taking charge, getting data, deciding on a path and learning this is for your child, but what about for themselves? What do you think to move the needle on someone's own personal health so that they can take better care of their family?
Well, I think it's a parallel path. It's very similar. So again, the very first step, a lot of people ask me, who's your doctor? And I have a lot of them, but you have to take charge. Step one, you have to say, I want to feel better. It's okay to want to feel like I'm 20 years old. It's your right. Do it. If you can, why not? So take that back. Take that right that you have to feel better, and then take charge. Don't count on one person. A doctor is a human. It's a person. It's not a god. It's not this creature this oracle that will just come and solve all your problems. It does not exist. So you take charge. Then you're going to do some testing, and there's some basic testing. And Zora, you always provide all these amazing lists. You provided it to me. Start with your basic testing. And the very, very first step, I would tell any mom that's looking at her health, whether they have chronic issues, whether they don't, no matter what, optimize your hormones, your sex hormones and your thyroid hormones. That should be the baseline. And that's what I've learned from the longevity space. And that's what I've learned for myself. Once I balanced that, because I was on GLPs, but my hormones were not balanced. Right? Once I did, and by the way, it literally just happened like a month and a half ago, where finally my hormones were not zero, which by the way is super acceptable for a woman in her 50s. You should feel horrible. They should be at zero. You're not going to have kids anymore, right? So why would you want to feel amazing? And so now they're not. Now they're looking more like the hormones of someone who's still even perimenopausal, that still can have kids. And that's what you want. So balance your hormones. Same thing with the thyroid. It's not acceptable to say, oh, well, you have Hashimoto's, you should feel horrible. No, you can balance it. You can feel better. It's not hard at all. You just need to know where you're starting, change your medication, test again, change your medication, test again, stable. Now test much later, but test again, maybe in 6 months, and just take charge. Don't wait. Don't wait for that Prince Charming on his white horse. He is not coming. And frankly, even if he's coming, you'll have to take care of him. So you don't want that. The buck stops with you for your health, for your child's health. If you already balance your hormones and your thyroid, and that's what I love that Nat always said to me, your body will actually start doing its job. Our bodies are so complex. And if you give your body the tools to do its job, it's unbelievable. You won't have to do it. So that's what I would say. Start with those things, with those two things, sex hormones, thyroid hormones.
Good one. Good one. So what does your morning routine look like?
Oh my goodness. Okay. So my morning routine, again, is very optimized because I have all of my wearables, right? And based on that, I found that I'm a night owl. I've always been. So I had a very fun youth. Let's just leave it at that. So that helped me then when I didn't have kids, when partying and having fun, it was amazing. But I'm a high cortisol person. So at night, it's very hard for me to fall asleep. And then first thing in the morning, it's really hard to get started because my cortisol is really low, because I should be someone that parties all night and wakes up at noon, basically. I cannot do that. So I realized that if I wake up at 5:30, actually in the morning, I have so much more energy throughout the day. And the other thing is my low cortisol first thing, I kind of hijack that and I force my cortisol to go up. And so I will go for a walk, or I would just do something versus just sitting there waiting for the energy to come to me. So I wake up
in the morning. You would go out for a walk at that time, or after you brush your teeth or whatever. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, because I have to take my thyroid medication, you cannot take your thyroid medication with coffee. So my very first thing is thyroid medication, and then just get up and go for a walk. And if there's sunshine, then that's great because it just does all the things. And it's a short walk. It's not a long walk. And then by the time I come back, I feel my cortisol is better, not anxiety, but just energy. And then I have something that I call my morning train. So I have a long thing of things that I do, and it's my stuff and then the kids' stuff. My husband does his own stuff now because I taught him how to fish. Exactly. Yeah. So he's like making his own creatine and all of that. But yes, so I have creatine and I have hydrogen. So the first thing I do is take 2 scoops of creatine, so 10 milligrams, drink that very quickly. Same with the hydrogen tablet afterwards, and I drink that. And then I prepare water bottles for me and the kids, and they're all different. So Jimmy's water bottle right now is just electrolytes, and that made a huge difference for him and for me. But next I'm going to be adding amino acids and things like that. But for now, it's just my goal with him is to drink a lot of water, at least 80 ounces per day, and more is better. He always feels better the more he drinks. His anxiety goes down. So I prepare everybody's concoction. Mine, I have electrolytes, amino acids, and whey protein, and ovacitol, which is inositol too. That's for the Hashimoto's. Put water, put some ice, prepare them. Now they're ready to go. And then depending on the protocol. So right now for Jimmy's protocol, he's taking progesterone transdermal. So he takes off his t-shirt, and then because his back doesn't have hair, Mediterranean kids, there's hair everywhere. So his back is a safe spot. So that's where I put a progesterone on his back, and I taught him how to make eggs in the morning. So he makes his eggs. So I'm putting progesterone on him while he's preparing his eggs. And if there's a peptide to be injected, that's when I do it. So Jimmy is on tirzepatide, which is GLP-2, because that helped him tremendously with his MCAS, MCAS, and allergies. That's just once a week. And then I give him also his morning plasmalogens. That's when I give it to him. And I give it to him by hand because I'm changing the dosage and I want to see if he reacts. And so that's my morning routine. And once that's ready, everybody's fed, they have their water going for the day. And that's when I start my day. And that's when I get ready, work out, get ready, and then do all the stuff we're doing right now. And I'm working on a lot of things. So yes, that's why I have a very structured day. I'm frankly working on also like a software solution for all these things that we're talking about. Yes.
Oh, wow.
And I have to be very structured. Otherwise, before I realize it, it's 3 p.m. and the day is gone. Yeah. And a big part of my day is also learning. So like I have your group, I put it on my calendar and I try to show up as much as possible because I learn so much. That's where I get a lot of my learning. So with you, with Nat, with Taylor and Hunter, and Dr. Amy, also once a week, I'm in her group. And so, yeah, that's my day, super structured, but I make sure that we have enough to keep going, hydrated, fed, all of that good stuff.
Oh, I love it. Oh my gosh, Jackie, you just painted a really great picture for us. And I'm going to have to let you go because we've gone over time. And I was trying to get, but it was so interesting. I really wanted to hear not only Jimmy's story and the children's, like how parents can help that, but also for the parents, how can we help them? So kind of combine 2 episodes in one. But before we go, what is your dream for Jimmy?
Oh my goodness, my dream for him. My dream, because I think about it all the time. So of course, my dream is for him to have the most fulfilling life he can have, whatever it means for him. But I want him to be able to have the option to have any life he wants, to mess it up if he wants to mess it up, to do amazing things if he wants to. I want him to be able to have friends. He has very few friends. I want him to be able to find love. I want him to be able to be independent. I want him to be able to have me go away and for it not to be an earthquake for his life and a death sentence, frankly, for him. That's what I want for him. And I believe that it's possible. I really do. I think it's happening. I want I want the message to be a message of hope and optimism. It's feasible. I really believe it's going to happen.
And I am also curious, how do you imagine yourself as an 80-year-old?
Ooh, the coolest 80-year-old. Because Jimmy's going to be doing so much better. I want to be going out with my friends. We'll be having a great time, going dancing and just having the best time. I'll be tan with a tank top because I'll have guns. My husband will be very healthy too. And that's how I see myself. And I see myself just having even more time to help people. for my purpose. I want to build things. I want to solve things. That's what I want. And with a peace of mind. I'll be 80 years old and I'll have peace of mind because Jimmy will be doing amazing and I'll be able to keep doing what I'm doing.
I think you have a good chance. You're doing so much for your health, your mental health, your physical health, and you're running a business and you have a podcast. It's incredible how you find the time to do this. I think it's very inspiring. And if you can do it, other people can do it too. And I want people who are interested in biohacking with autism, without autism. I think the information that you have on your podcast is so good. You just interviewed my gerontology professor, and it's such a good episode talking about caregiving. And you've got so many things on there. And I know that you've got things in the pipeline and you're going to be interviewing some of the greatest minds. And I'm really excited for that. And I'm wishing you all the best on this journey. And I'm cheering you on. And I'm going to have links in the show notes of how to find your podcast, Biohacking Autism. And you've got Instagram, you've got other social media handles. Everything will be in the show notes. But is there anything else that you'd like to say before I let you go?
I want to say, first of all, thank you for having me on. This is my first guest episode. And thank you for being who you are, because again, you bring me a lot of just empathy and kindness. And I just want to leave everybody again with a message of hope. There are solutions. There are things that can be done. Take charge and just things can be amazing for you. Just step by step. You can do it.
Thank you, everyone who's listened to the very end. We wouldn't be here without you. We so appreciate the time that you give us, and I hope you've learned something. If you have, please share this episode with somebody who could learn as well. Send us a note, what you think, what was your big takeaway. We want to hear from you. We read everything. So take care. Have a good day, good night, good morning, wherever you're at, and I will see you very soon, Nadia. Take care.
Take care. Bye.